Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I've got a new video for you. It's going to be a character review and it's going to be Cruella. Cruella's coming to the game. She's going to come alongside Hades and she's going to be the new range character and she's got a very interesting kit. So before we jump in, just quickly want to show these attributes here. So she's got 11,500 focus, which is the highest focus of any ranged in the game. What that means is that she's going to have a higher crit chance, crit damage, so watch out for those crits hitting big. She does have the lowest offense, however, of any character in the ranged class, so she's going to hit kind of a little bit like a wet noodle on her normal non-crits, and then kind of have to make up for it with her crits. And then kind of health and defense is pretty high for a range, so she's got some good stuff there. Moving on to her traits, she's got a lot of good traits here. She's got that tall leader trait, which means she can be used against the gatekeeper in that left slot. And then she's going to be villainous and scary, so she's going to be very good for fighting against Maleficent. She's also going to be a fortune seeker, which means that you've now got a choice between her and Oogie Boogie in that right hand side slot, I believe. So it's going to make a kind of a big difference here really, because previously Oogie was the only one who could be slotted in to fight against Maleficent. So yeah, I think they've made her with Raid in mind here, guys, and you'll see that a little bit more when we get to her talents. But so far, yeah, a lot of good traits. She's got 6, which is on the high end of the trait list, and she can be used in towers as well, because she's got that leader trait. So anyway, let's move on to her abilities. Right, Cruella's core ability. Her basic attacks inflict her -5% dizzy debuff for 8 seconds on the target, and you can stack these to 4. And then this is going to synergize really well with a heavy attack. So heavy attacks only hit one target, but they have a 25% chance per dizzy debuff to inflict root. So you can understand here you're going to be trying out these combinations. You're going to be doing 4 basic attacks and then holding down that heavy to inflict root, because it'll have a 100% chance to do so. And rooting for 6 seconds is kind of huge. There's no character, I believe, that roots on their heavy attack in a game, so this is very and someone can correct me if I'm wrong there, but this makes Cruella really kind of stand out in that sense, and I see where they're going with it. So Cruella as a character is very manipulative and controlling, and this really does kind of feed into her character as a person in like the movies and stuff. So I do quite like what they've done here with this ability to root. And then this last part basically says the root cannot be reapplied until it's expired, and then when the root expires it removes all dizzy debuffs, but that's fine. You're just going to be laying them on really thick. So I also believe this is going to be very useful for raids. You can currently root the gatekeeper, and to be able to root him on demand, which seems like the case here, I think that's great. And she's gonna be pretty optimized for raids. Now moving on, we've got her special ability, which is gonna be another root. So enemies in a line are rooted for 6 seconds and then they're dealt 400% damage, and we've got a cooldown of 15 seconds, so one of the higher ends in the game for a cooldown, which is fine. But we've got another way to root enemies here, so you're gonna be able to root on both your heavy attacks and your special. So in essence it feels like you can pretty much permanently root characters by using this. I do really like the animation of this special as well. Like it looks very cool. It's kind of similar to Buzz. It does this like huge blast in a row, and really it looks quite cool, and then it roots all the characters that are in that line, which is great, and it kind of goes alongside this manipulative kind of controlling person that she is. So I quite like that as well. And then this next part is really cool as well, because in essence, you're going to build on top of the root. So enemies that are rooted already, are instead going to be stunned for 6 seconds before the damage is dealt. So a stun is awesome in this game because it means you've got like a way of disrupting specials now. So you can stun enemies that are about to use their specials, and yeah, I quite like this as a built-in thing on top of a root, because you're going to be able to root quite a lot with her heavy attacks. So this builds something else into a kit, and another element of control. So yeah, really cool ability there. And now her signature ability, which is Seeing Spots. This is effectively just going to build into additional damage for Cruella. She's going to get an extra 30% damage to dizzy enemies, 60% damage to rooted, and then 90% damage to stunned. So depending on the levels of control you've got, you're going to be doing more damage, which I think is quite neat to have in a kit. Also, because she doesn't really hit very hard, on those non-crits, and I didn't really find she hit very hard in my testing. This is just something that kind of can boost her up like a tad. She's going to be a character that isn't going to be kind of heavy on the damage front, but definitely gives you another dimension for controlling and strategizing your battles. Right, let's move on to her talents. Okay, so these first two talents are just going to be pretty basic. We've got some focus, and then we've also got some offense. Straightforward there. So this first advanced talent, if Cruella hits an enemy that's rooted with a heavy attack, that enemy gains a lure for 5 seconds, and then all of our allies gain a 20% attack buff for the same duration, and only one enemy can be lured at a time. Again, this just kind of adds a layer of control on top of a kit, but I didn't really like this that much. I didn't, outside of the 20% attack buff, for 5 seconds to characters, I don't really know why you'd want to kind of like lure enemies all that often. I feel like the fights that I'm usually in are more chaotic than that, and I like the AI to attack the target that's the most threatening, and that's usually the one that's closer to it. So if you're kind of luring enemies, your character's gonna focus them. Luring for me is better when it's like your own character, like Simba or Genie, because for me it's these characters then get indestructible buffs, and it takes the damage away from your supporting cast. Whereas here you're taking the focus away from your characters kind of doing their thing to focus on the one that probably you're attacking. So I don't know, I'm not sure about this one, but the 20% attack buff is kind of nice, so there's that. Okay, so a second advanced talent is going to be this pit maneuver. So when Cruella dashes through an enemy which has 4 or more dizzy buffs, she removes all those dizzy buffs, and then that target stuns them for 4 seconds. And then it's got an 8-second cooldown. So there's another talent that I just didn't really... This is another one which I wasn't really sold on, because when are you going to be dashing through like enemies? The way I see you want to play Cruella is like any other range. You kind of want them to be out the way at the back, so that they're, because range normally have a little bit like supports. They don't have as much health and defense, so they can't take as many hits. So I'm not sure you'd want Cruella to be, at the front line dashing through enemies to stun them. So I wasn't really sold on this ability, if I'm being honest, but maybe it's going to have some use. Like if you're in a battle with tons of enemies and she's getting swarmed, then she can kind of dash through the ones that have got dizzy buffs, but you're going to have to do it to only the ones that have 4 or more dizzy buffs. So unlike the last ability, which was giving out these offense buffs, at least, I don't know, this one seems like a bit like Violet's shrinking ability, very kind of niche, and not sure you'd ever want to use it. So I'm not sold on this one. And then moving on, This is when we start getting the good ones. So I'm not going to try to say what the talent is, can't pronounce that. But if an enemy is rooted or stunned by any of Cruella's abilities and has armor remaining, they are inflicted with an instant 300% shock. So this is going to be great against characters that have a lot of armor. So we have those like big minions that spawn with loads of armor. Also, the Gatekeeper's going to have a decent amount of armor, so she can probably shock him. Yeah, and this talent is one I would suggest equipping. Okay, and the last one we've got is her elite talent. When Cruella is in the encounter, her allies deal an additional 30% damage to rooted enemies. You're going to want to equip this one for sure. She's going to be rooting all the time, and you're just going to boost your offense of your allies effectively doing this, equipping this elite talent. And then when an enemy inflicted with a dizzy buff misses, they receive a minus 5% defense debuff for 12 seconds, and this can stack for 5. So you can get 25%, minus 25% defense debuffs, and these are going to definitely stack up. And I noticed these in my testing that you'd see this quite a bit, and it was quite nice. It laid down the debuffs thick effectively. So there were some combinations I definitely enjoyed testing. I think there's some obvious combinations now with Rift Raids. So one of them I used was Evil Queen, Oogie and Cruella just in testing, because I know that Evil Queen is going to also do dizzy debuffs as well. So that's going to kind of synergize with her kit. Also with the fact that for the Maleficent Sentinel, you're going to need to play them together anyway. So it synergized well in the first place, but then it also made sense because of Rift Raids. So that's one pairing I would suggest. And then, you've got your Oogie as your tank, also putting down a lot of debuffs himself. Overall, what do I think of Cruella? Look, I think she's been designed with a purpose. There's definitely a sell for her, and her sell is Rift Raids. She's got the ability to be used on the Gatekeeper later on. She's also got the right tags for the Maleficent Sentinel, and actually she's got a few I haven't pointed out yet. She's going to be able to be used against Gaston as well, that leader Sentinel, and also against Oogie, because she's going to have that leader short fuse, that scary Tull, and then we've got this villainous Fortune Seeker, which she's going to be able to slot in alongside Oogie. That's the main one that I think is the big sell here, but she's really been made to be attractive for Rift Raids, so I think that's Kabam's big sell here. Her ability to root is pretty awesome. It's going to be one of the best roots in the game, just because she can be rooting on her heavy attack, synergizing along with all these dizzy debuffs. So I think she's definitely got a role to play. It was hard to gauge her as a character in terms of her damage during the playtest, because we only get the characters at level 50, 5-star, and we're starting to progress beyond the point where your supporting characters are better than that. So it was hard to see her shine in playtesting, especially from a damage standpoint. I don't think her damage is going to be too high, but she's going to make up for it with the rest of her kit, with all this kind of control, this rooting, this dizzy stuff, these defense debuffs. All that kind of stuff is going to work in her favor. Her talents, again, those two that, the two advanced talents I wasn't a big fan of. Maybe this is a time to use one of her basic talents, but yeah, there's at least one of them gives out attack buffs. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and I've given some insight into Cruella. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.